The anime begins with the protagonist, Cry, and his childhood friends promising to become treasure hunters together, aiming to become the strongest heroes in the world. In this world, treasure hunters are the stars of the imperial capital. They travel to ruins called treasure vaults, which are scattered across the world, to obtain the treasures hidden there. In exchange for the risk of losing their lives while battling monsters known as phantoms, the story then fast-forwards to the present, where Cry is trying to join a clan because First Steps is currently hosting interviews for new party members. A clan is a group of parties, functioning like a mutual aid society. No matter how strong a hunter is, there are limits to going solo. To reach higher levels, it's important to join a good party and grow stronger with allies. While Cry waits, a girl named Ruta approaches him and greets him. She was recently promoted to a level 3 hunter. She tells Cry that everyone seems nervous, which feels unsettling, but he appears different. He looks like he is easy to talk to. Ruta explains that she wants to join another party because she struggled with a treasure shrine called White Wolves Denver. Overhearing this, a guy nearby laughs and mocks Ruta, saying she's out of her mind for attempting White Wolves Den at level 3. He calls her an amateur and warns her to leave before she gets hurt. Although level 3 is considered mid-level in the world, here, it's no better than being a beginner. Ruta, now angry, draws her blades, ready to fight. But before she can act, another hunter working there intervenes, warning them that if they escalate the situation, they'll be kicked out of the clan recruitment. Ruta quickly hides her blades, saying there's no problem. Inside, Ruta is impressed by how many hunters are there and feels slightly overwhelmed, as it's her first time in this setting. She then asks Cry how he feels. He replies that he feels normal, as this is his 5th time. Hearing this, she feels bad for asking and apologizes to Cry, but he reassures her, saying he doesn't mind. After all, being a hunter is about skill. Talented people rise to the top quickly, while others cling to any chance they can get. As Ruta looks around, she notices one party that stands out the most and asks Cry who they are. Cry tells her that the party is called the Holy Spirit's Son, Arc Brave. They are the strongest party here, consisting of 5 members who conquered a level 7 treasure vault. They're the best of the best, and the person sitting in the middle is their leader, Arkansas. Cry adds that if Arc recognizes you during this event, you're destined to be a successful hunter. As far as Cry knows, this is the first time he's seen them recruiting a new member from here. Ruta then points to another desk in the back and asks what it's for. The guy who argued with her earlier comes over again, mocking her for not knowing. He introduces himself as Greg, a level 4 hunter. He explains that the table is for the founder of the First Steps clan. It's the Grievers table. A few years ago, Grievers came to the capital as a newcomer party full of talent, and now they're one of the most famous parties. Their official name is Grieving Souls, and it's a party made up of Cry's childhood friends. Rumor has it that Grievers are recruiting new members for the first time in years, which is why so many hunters have gathered here, hoping for a chance to join the top party. Suddenly, a young man named Gilbert shouts, asking where Grievers are. He heard they were the best and came all the way here to join them. Gilbert is already a level 4 hunter and is determined to become the strongest hunter one day. As he talks, a girl named Tino approaches and tells him to leave. A nearby hunter tries to stop her, but she says it's fine, it'll be over in an instant. She's ready to knock Gilbert out and is confident that if her sister were here, she'd do the same. Tino believes she's the one worthy enough to join Grieving Souls. Excited, the other hunters encourage them to fight, even making space for them. Meanwhile, Cry tells Ruta to go outside with him, warning that if they get caught up in the fight, they might die. As they are about to leave, Tino suddenly senses Cry and starts looking around for him, ignoring her opponent who is ready to unleash a powerful skill. As soon as she spots Cry, she rushes toward him, blocking his way and asking, "What are you doing here, master?" At the same time, Gilbert misses his attack and gets his sword stuck. It turns out that Cry is Tino's master and also the clan master and leader of Grieving Souls. Everyone is shocked to learn this. Several years ago, Cry and his childhood friends left the imperial capital as newcomers and began conquering beginner treasure vaults one after another. Cry has always felt like the weakest member of the team. Once, a monster approached him from behind, but one of his friends saved him. Before he could thank them, they praised him instead, thinking he had used himself as a decoy to make it easier for them to kill the monster. Cry, however, hadn't realized this at all. Fearing that he might one day become a burden to his team, Cry decided to tell them his true feeling and was prepared to leave the group. However, instead of letting him go, the team asked him to become their leader, much to his shock. It seems like Cry is suffering from success. From that day on, Cry continued as the leader of his party. Several years passed, and although Cry always wanted to retire from being a hunter, he couldn't because of his leadership position. Later, Ark approaches Cry and asks why he's late. Cry explains that he overslept, but Ark doesn't believe him, thinking he's just joking around. Ark assumes Cry is secretly assessing the hunters by blending in with the participants. Cry tries to deny this, insisting he just overslept, but Ark doesn't listen. As Ark talks, Tino points at him, accusing him of being rude to Cry and demanding that Cry expel Ark from the clan. Tino dislikes Ark and always calls him a fake handsome guy. She doesn't even let him get close to Cry. Ark, on the other hand, finds Tino's behavior funny and often tries to pat her on the head. It turns out that Tino is a level 4 solo hunter from the clan Footprint. She is also an apprentice and protege of Liz, one of Cry's childhood friends. Ark then asks Cry if he's found any good candidates. Cry smiles and replies by asking, "If I said there was a candidate, would you take them by your side?" Ark smiles and says, "Of course, I trust your judgment, but I can only take one member." Ark's teammates get angry at Cry for suggesting the idea, as they don't want any new teammates. Tino, thinking Cry might be chosen her, telling him that she's honored, but she has already decided to stay by his side. As she talks, Gilbert interrupts her, telling Cry that he's determined to join his party no matter what. Cry, impressed by Gilbert's determination, listens as Gilbert introduces himself. Cry then looks at Ark, thinking that Gilbert would become even stronger if he were trained by Ark's party. Cry admits to himself that he has no eye for recognizing talent, so it all comes down to luck when choosing someone. He then asks everyone what they think is the most important quality for a hunter. For him, it's the ability to never give up. He explains that if you lack strength, you'll put your team in danger, so he wants everyone to show him their unbeatable determination. After all, since becoming a hunter, Cry has never lost a battle. Hearing this shocks everyone, though it's true, as Cry has never been in a proper fight before. Cry then takes off his ring and declares that whoever can claim this relic will be recommended to join Ark's team. He tosses the ring to Gilbert, but as soon as Gilbert catches it, he gets kicked in the face by Tino. Poor guy. Every hunter then begins fighting over the ring. Cry tells them that the ring is a treasure and he'll give it to whoever wins, before leaving the scene. The next day, at the clan house, a girl named Eva, the vice clan master, informs Cry that he made the front page of the news article about the recruitment incident. Luckily, no civilians were hurt. However, they still received a call from the Explorers Association. Cry asks what Ark thought about the situation. Eva tells him that Ark was laughing as he read the article. Cry, thinking Ark has a big heart. He then tells Eva to send the bill for the bar repairs to Ark and to have Ark handle the Explorers Association as well. Eva, however, believes Cry relies too much on Ark and tells him she can't do that. After all, the Explorers Association specifically requested Cry to go. Cry doesn't want to leave because his reverse face relic, which changes his appearance, is broken. The relic allows him to transform his face into anyone he chooses. Having no choice, Cry accepts his fate and agrees to go. Later, at the Explorers Association, Cry apologizes to Gark, the branch master of the Explorer Association, asking for forgiveness and explaining that the chaos wasn't intentional. The woman next to Gark tells Cry to calm down and hands him a book. Gark reminds him that, while there were no formal complaints, a clan as big as First Steps should set an example for other hunters. He won't let Cry off the hook so easily. The Explorers Association receives various requests from hunters, some of which have low rewards, short durations, or are extremely difficult. Hunters refer to these types of requests as chores. Cry doesn't want to do them and tries to negotiate with Gark to take on only one request, as handling more feels overwhelming. Gark agrees. While flipping through the book of requests, Cry manages to find the easiest one, which only requires a level 3 hunter. Cry is thrilled, unaware that this request is actually the most dangerous among them. Later, Cry looks for Ark, only to be shocked when he learns that Ark has been summoned by a nobleman and will be away for a while. Meanwhile, Tino, eager for Cry's praise, tries to show off that she was the one who claimed the ring. Cry asks Tino if she's free right now, which makes Tino really happy. Cry smiles and takes out his request from the association. Upon seeing it, Tino quickly runs away. Cry then pulls out his chain called Silver and manages to catch her. Feeling betrayed, Tino complains, asking how Cry could do such a terrible thing to her. She was planning to go out for ice cream with him, but now her plans are ruined. The quest requires rescuing 5 people, and Tino believes it's impossible for her since she's only a level 4 hunter. She appreciates that Cry gives her challenging quests for the sake of her growth, but this one seems too much. Hearing this, Cry quickly reviews the quest and asks Tino if she'll agree to do it if she doesn't have to go alone. Tino blushes, thinking Cry will go with her, only to get angry when she finds out she'll be paired with someone else. Poor girl. 6 years ago, Cry and his childhood friends visited the treasure hunters' headquarters for the first time to register as official treasure hunters. The moment they entered, his friends loudly declared themselves as the strongest hunters in the world, much to Cry's embarrassment. Cry was then asked to register his party's name and crest. Since these represent the core values of the group, Cry came up with an idea. He decided to name his party Grieving Souls, thinking it would lead others to underestimate their strength and not take his team seriously. His friends didn't like the name at all and wanted Cry to change it. However, Cry threatened to leave the party, saying he wouldn't feel motivated with any other name. Worried he might actually quit, his friends quickly forced a smile and agreed to the name. Back at the present, Gilbert, Greg, and Ruta are still in disbelief that Cry is truly the clan master of Steps, a level 8 hunter, and holds the prestigious title of 1000 Tricks Hunter. This title was given to him by the association as leader of the Grieving Souls. When hunters reach a certain level of prestige, they are awarded special titles and are almost revered like celebrities. For hunters, there's no higher honor. Cry then asks the 3 of them to help Tino with her quest. Greg and Ruta agree to help, however, Gilbert does not. He refuses to believe that Cry is the leader of the strongest party everyone talks about. He thinks Cry is a weak hunter, judging by his size, and refuses to listen to him. Cry respects his opinion and decides to take only Greg and Ruta's help. Gilbert is shocked by this and wonders how Cry can give up on him so easily. Cry tells him that it's unfortunate, but there's not much he can do. He then tells Tino that if she needs more help, she can ask someone else from the clan. Tino asks Cry one more time to come with her, but he declines. As they were about to leave, Gilbert told Cry to stop and challenged him to a one-on-one fight, saying that if he lost, he would join them. Cry agreed, but stated that he wouldn't be the one fighting, Tino would. Tino was furious with Gilbert for his rude behavior toward Cry and was ready to beat him to a pulp. Gilbert told Tino that he had been careless during their last encounter, but today he was going all out. He then looked at Cry and said that once he beat her, Cry would be next. This annoyed Cry because he didn't want to fight. Cry then reveals that Tino is also level 4, which shocks Gilbert. Tino warns Gilbert that, compared to Cry, she's garbage, but there's no way she'll lose this fight. She then drops her weapon, saying she'll hold back so she doesn't kill him. Greg and Ruta are shocked and worried about Tino, since she's a thief, a class not typically suited for one-on-one combat. Cry, however, thinks differently. While they are the same level, Tino reached hers solo and has plenty of experience fighting humans. The only thing that gives Gilbert the upper hand is his sword. Depending on its abilities, it could easily tip the scales in his favor. While he was thinking, Gilbert suddenly dropped his sword, telling Tino not to underestimate him. He didn't need a weapon to fight an unarmed girl, which made Cry wonder if Gilbert was out of his mind, a swordsman tossing aside his own sword. Tino happily told Cry that if she won, he'd have to take her for ice cream. Cry wanted to say no, but he couldn't. He didn't want to upset her. Then, the battle began. Tino moved fast, landing a kick that knocked Gilbert to the ground. He got up quickly, trying to counterattack, but Tino caught him and warned him not to talk back to Cry ever again if he doesn't want any more pain. Tino wants Gilbert to treat Cry as a god and pray to him 3 times a day. As she talks, Gilbert finally regains his strength and breaks free from Tino, only to be chopped in the neck by her. Tino quickly looks at Cry, expecting praise, while Greg and Ruta are still in disbelief that she actually won so easily. Gilbert, however, still refuses to accept defeat. he suddenly has a flashback to his youth when he first dreamed of becoming a hunter. As a child, he picked up a sword and quickly surpassed even the adults around him. He grew up, moved to the capital, and joined a party, clearing multiple treasure vaults. He was proud of how far he'd come, believing no one could beat him. As he was lost in thought, Tino approached and told him to pick up his sword. When he refused, Tino remarked on his foolish pride, warning him it would mean nothing if he died. Gilbert knows she's right. In a real fight, he would have been dead long ago. Cry then tells him he knows that Gilbert left his party because the power difference between him and the others was just too great. Gilbert is shocked, wondering how Cry could know that. Cry explains that the same thing happened in his own party, but no one was ever abandoned, which is true because his team wouldn't even allow Cry to leave. Hearing this, amazes Gilbert. The Grieving Souls is a group of elites who stand out even here in the capital. So that mean, Cry has been showing mercy to people like this all along. Cry then kicks the sword, and suddenly fire bursts from it, surrounding Cry. Cry tells Gilbert that it is a great sword and he should treat it well. Gilbert, in disbelief, because even he couldn't be able to use this sword to that extent and with such ease, and he calls Cry a monster. In this world, mana material is considered the basic substance of everything. It's everywhere, but you can't see it with your eyes. Treasure vaults form when ley lines and other forces gather mana material, creating limited alternate worlds based on memories from the core of the world. Although many places study how this works, it isn't fully understood yet. The White Wolf's Den is one of these treasure vaults. It was once home to wolf monsters called Silver Moons, but they were wiped out because of overhunting for their fur. Soon after, the treasure vault appeared, along with a blood-soaked wolf phantom. Cry thinks the White Wolf's Den is scary, but he believes Tino and her team will be fine since the quest only requires a level 3 hunter. He thanks Eva for telling him why Gilbert left his party, and she's happy to help. Then, she asks Cry about Gilbert's sword that he used earlier. Cry explains that the sword is simple to use, one he can control right away. Even Gilbert could use it a bit without knowing anything. Cry loves relics and has a habit of collecting them, so he wonders if Gilbert would sell him the sword. He thinks he could discover even more about it with some testing. Eva, annoyed, tells him to stop wasting money, as he already has many similar relics. Cry explains to her that each relic has its own personality. Even if they look alike, they all work a bit differently. Eva sighs and tells him that, even though his team makes good money, he needs to cut back a little. After all, the team's profits are split equally among all members, no matter how much each person contributes. While she's talking, Cry realizes he forgot to get his relics recharged. Later, he asks a fellow hunter to do it for him, and learns that a rogue phantom recently appeared on a road up north, destroying an entire guarded caravan. 3 level 3 guards were defeated. Witnesses say the phantom took the form of a wolf. Since the location is close to the White Wolf's Den, the phantom likely came from there. Upon hearing this, Cry begins to worry about Tino and her team. The hunters then share more bad news, saying that phantoms in the White Wolf's Den have been growing stronger, and there's talk of increasing its danger level. In fact, even a party of level 5 hunters has gone missing while going there. In a panic, Cry looks at the quest one more time, and it turns out that the quest is to rescue the missing level 5 hunters. Seeing how nervous Cry is, his fellow hunters ask what's wrong. He tells them that he just sent Tino to the White Wolf's Den. The hunters are shocked and say, "You sent Tino, a level 4, into a place where a level 5 party went missing?" Cry smiles and explains that it will be good practice for her. He reassures them not to worry because he also sent 3 independent hunters with her. This makes them even more shocked, as they say it's already a difficult mission, and now he sent her with a makeshift team. They think this must be part of the 1,000 trials, which is why Cry's party is the strongest. Cry then excuses himself and leaves, reassuring himself that everything will be fine. Gilbert is quite capable, as long as he has his sword. However, Cry remembers that he used up all the mana in the sword and wonders if Gilbert has recharged it since then. Elsewhere, Tino tells her team that this quest is very difficult, which is why she wrote a will. She doesn't plan on dying, but she wants to be prepared. Tino explains that Cry knew something was wrong at the White Wolf's Den, and that's why he sent them here. She adds that the makeup of their party isn't random, it's all part of Cry's plan. Greg and Gilbert doubt this since they just met Cry for the first time yesterday. However, Gilbert remembers that Cry knows about his past, which makes him believe Tino's words. Tino tells everyone that Cry has a lot of knowledge about the hunters in the capital and all the treasure vaults. Even though he has never met them, it is easy for him to read their actions and thoughts. The pub incident was also planned out. Everything has been carefully thought through, including their arrival here. No matter what happens, everything is going according to his plan. He would never randomly send them on a mission that is impossible. Meanwhile, Cry doesn't know what to do. He hoped that Tino and her team will come back if it gets too hard, but then he remembered that Tino is under the bad influence of his childhood friends, so she won't give up that easily. With no other choice, Cry decides to go after them and stop them before they reach the White Wolf's Denver. He gathers most of his strong relics and gets ready to leave, but Eva stops him. She asks what he's doing. Cry tries to lie and says he's just going for a little walk, but she doesn't believe him. Eva finds Cry's actions cute because, no matter what he says, he's still worried about Tino. After saying goodbye to Eva, Cry uses his relic and takes off into the air. Eva wonders if he will be okay, especially since the relic he used to fly came from the human missile incident. It has no safety features, no brakes, and can't hover or steer. It's just plain defective. At the same time, Tino and her team are shocked to see a monster wielding a sword and wearing armor, and they struggle to defeat it. Long ago, when the grieving souls had recently begun their operations, Cry and his team gathered at a tavern to talk about their latest adventure. They mentioned how they'd managed to defeat a cyclops. A man nearby overheard and scoffed, telling them not to talk nonsense. There was no way a bunch of kids like them could defeat such a creature. But he was left stunned when Cry's team showed him the Cyclops corpse as proof. Back in the present, Tino and his team struggled to defeat the monster, but they still managed to it. Greg asked Gilbert why he hadn't used his fire. Gilbert then realized that his sword had run out of mana due to Cry, and he had forgotten to recharge it. Ruta then suggested they should retreat for now, but Tino refused. She insisted they push forward, explaining that they had to complete the mission because it was Cry's decision. She reminded them that the depletion of the sword's mana was likely part of Cry's plan, urging them not to rely on their relics. At the entrance of the treasure vault, many monsters were guarding it. Gilbert wanted to go first, thinking that if he could take out the monsters with his bow and gun, the rest of the battle would be manageable. Tino called him foolish, saying that as the leader, it was her responsibility to ensure everyone came back alive. This time, Cry was counting on her to lead. Returning home with every member safe was the bare minimum. She then came up with a plan. Since she and Ruta were nimble, they would draw the enemies toward them, while Gilbert and Greg attacked from behind. Meanwhile, Cry wished everything was going okay. He thought that if worse came to worst, at least Tino should survive, even if she had to use the rest of the party as meat shields. Tino's strategy worked, and they easily defeated the monsters one by one. Even though the monsters outmatched them in skill, Tino and her team had one advantage, and it is their teamwork. Tino thinks her team isn't too bad, especially considering they were quickly assembled. Gilbert may have a big mouth, but he's actually pretty strong. Ruta doesn't do anything too flashy, yet as a thief, she's excellent at locating enemies. As for Greg, he has a lot of experience, which helps him coordinate well with the others. Tino believes that Cry calculated all of this perfectly and even calls him a god. As they fight, Gilbert suddenly has a flashback to when he left his previous party because the gap in their abilities is too wide. Back then, he was filled with anger. But now, he understands that they were struggling too, and he had never considered their feelings. He never knew that fighting alongside a team could feel this good. As they venture deeper, they arrive in an open area. Tino senses something there, likely a boss. Greg suggests they should retreat, but Tino insists they fight. After all, they've made it this far without a scratch. Tino scolds Greg, saying he shouldn't be so cautious, explaining that safe missions don't help people grow. Caution is usually good, but sometimes you have to throw it aside. Greg thinks she's not entirely wrong. He explains that once a hunter reaches level 4, they can earn a decent living by completing treasure vaults below their level. Up until now, whenever he had doubts about winning, he would pull back from the fight. This hesitation was a result of seeing many of his friends die. Tino tells Greg that he must want to change, which is why he joined First Steps. It's also the reason Cry placed him in this party. After all, why would Cry choose someone he barely knew? Tino then tells her team that Cry isn't the type to form a group randomly. Everything he does is planned and calculated. Ruta then asks her, so why did he pick me? Tino pauses for a moment and thinks it's because of her big melon. Ruta is shocked hearing this and got annoyed. At the same time, Cry can't find Tino anywhere, he think he might come too late already. As he go near the treasure vault, he realized that his flying relic doesn't have a break at all. Having no choice, he fly into the vault, crushing everywhere. Meanwhile, Tino and her team have a hard time fighting the boss, knowing they can't win in a head-on fight. Tino carefully observes the boss and spots its weak spot. She tells her team to cover for her while she attempts to reach the boss's neck. Gilbert tries to draw its attention by blocking its attacks, while Greg strikes its leg but gets knocked to the ground. The boss then turns to attack Tino, but she skillfully dodges all of its blows with ease. Ruta is amazed to see Tino move with such confidence, showing no fear on her face. The boss then turns its attention to Greg and breaks his sword. Just as it's about to strike Greg down, Ruta arrives in time to save him. Seeing the opening, Tino charges at the boss, but got cut by its sword. Despite the injury, she manages to reach its neck and deliver the fatal blow, killing it. Tino then uses a healing potion to treat her wound. Afterward, the team regroups, believing that the only task remaining is to rescue the missing persons. But before they go, Tino hands Greg her sword, telling him it's better than nothing. As they talk, a flying axe comes toward them, but Tino manages to dodge it just in time. Four monsters that resemble the boss then appear, startling everyone. Tino thinks that this is too much for her to handle and questions Cry's decision. She then points to a passage and instructs everyone to retreat there. However, before they can move, a monster blocks their path. Greg and Gilbert decide to be the bait, telling Tino and Ruta to escape first, but they refuse. Tino then remembers the ring she received from Cry. She turns around and tells everyone that she's not going to sacrifice anyone. After explaining her plan, Greg, Gilbert, and Ruta charge at the monster, trying to distract it while Tino waits for an opening. She recalls how Cry taught her to use the ring before launching it at the monster, blinding it. Seeing this, Gilbert charges at the monster. Tino yells for him to stop, but he doesn't listen and ends up getting knocked into the wall. Gilbert apologizes to Tino, but she tells him not to since it's her fault for not being a better leader. Just as they think they're done for, Cry suddenly crashes into one of the monsters. Cry is relieved to see that Tino is safe, but strangely, the monsters appear afraid of him. When one of them attacks Cry, it did nothing, leaving it shocked. Cry then smiles and assures them that it won't be easy to kill him, as he still has 17 lives. He then uses his relic to strike the monster. Unfortunately, the monster survives, shocking everyone who assumes it must be incredibly strong to survive that attack. Cry, however, isn't surprised, knowing that the relic he used was more flashy than powerful. Cry carefully observes the monsters and got scared, thinking it doesn't make sense for such creatures to appear in this treasure vault. One of the monsters even carrying a gun. Cry is relieved that he brought 17 safety rings with him. At this point, he no longer cares about the mission and just wants to go home as quickly as possible. As he thinks, the monsters begin surrounding him. With no other option, Cry pulls out his necklace, tosses it into the air, and shoots it with his relic, causing an explosion that distracts them. He quickly tells Tino and her team to run as fast as they can, while he follows closely behind. Gilbert urges Tino to run faster, pointing out that at this pace, the monsters will catch up quickly. However, Ruta calls him an idiot, reminding him that Tino's leg is still not fully healed. She believes Cry is deliberately setting a slower pace as the rear guard, taking Tino's condition into account. Meanwhile, Cry isn't slowing down on purpose, he's running at full speed here. Tino thinks about how kind Cry has been to her, reminding her of when they first met. When Tino was younger, she was caught by two men who tried to sell her. Luckily, Cry and his team were passing by, saw what was happening, and quickly knocked out the men, saving her. From that moment on, Tino admired Cry and his team, considering him a god. After managing to escape, Tino approaches Cry, wanting to apologize for not meeting his expectations. Ruta steps in to defend Tino, pointing out that they would all be dead by now if it weren't for her. Cry understands this and reassures Tino, telling her that she did well. He then apologizes for putting her through such a dangerous quest. Tino tries to get Cry's attention by complaining about how much her injury hurts, prompting him to use his relic to heal her leg. Greg asks Cry if he defeated the monsters. Cry responds that he didn't, as running was the best option at that moment. Cry then takes the lead, but as they walk, he suddenly realizes he has no clue where the exit is or where he's heading. In the past, when Cry first showed his childhood friends his relics, they were amazed. However, most of the relics he had collected turned out to be completely useless. One was a magic bag that could hold much more than it appeared, but it could only store chocolate. Another was a bracelet called the Labyrinth Ring, which distorted the wearer's sense of space. There was also a cursed sword. Whoever wielded it would fall under its control and be driven to attack others on sight. Afterward, these dangerous relics were fortunately turned into training gear for them. Back in the present, as they walk, Cry couldn't help but wonder why he was leading the group. He figured it should have been Tino or Ruda. When he turned around to speak to them, he was surprised to see that all of them had turned around as well, thinking Cry was looking at something behind them. Cry misunderstood the situation, thinking that Tino might be angry with him, which was why she wasn't talking to him. Just then, Gilbert suddenly asked Cry where they were headed. Cry thought, of course, we're heading to the exit, but before he could answer, Tino spoke up, telling Gilbert that figuring out Cry's plan was part of their training. She then added that they had actually been moving away from the exit this whole time. If they want to return, they have to go back to the boss chamber. This revelation surprised everyone, even Cry. Cry thinks to himself that this explains why the monsters looked so strong. Not wanting to get exposed, he realizes he has no choice but to go deeper. There, they find the missing party, which shocks everyone. They begin to wonder if this was Cry's plan all along. Tino then proudly tells them that everything Cry does, he does for a reason. After rescuing the missing party, a man named Rudolph, the party leader, thanks Tino for saving them. But Tino replies that if anyone should be thanked, it should be Cry, since he was the one who figured everything out and led her team here. After giving them some potions, Ruda asks Cry if he has anything to eat, as their energy is completely drained. Cry smiles and happily pulls out chocolates from his magic bag, telling everyone to eat as much as they want. Tino, impressed, thinks to herself that Cry is truly a god. He not only saved her and her team, but also found the lost party with ease. What's even more impressive, though, is his ability to calm everyone down in such a tense situation. Later, Gilbert asks Rudolph how the Wolf Knights were able to defeat them, a level 5 party. Rudolph denies it, saying the one who defeated him and his team was a small phantom with its entire face covered by a skull. He believes that the phantom is the embodiment of hatred. It's likely a manifestation of the lingering curse of the Silver Moon. After the humans wiped out the wolf monsters, their hatred grew inside the treasure vault, eventually transforming into this immense power. The phantom is so powerful that Rudolph and his team don't stand a chance against it. Back then, it refused to finish them off, toying with them, but it will definitely kill them the next time they meet. Rudolph thinks the phantom might even be on the same level as Thousand Swords, the strongest swordsman. This terrifies everyone, except Cry, who think otherwise. Thousand Swords is his childhood friend and a member of the Greaves, so Cry knows better than anyone just how strong he really is. As the Sword Saint's apprentice, he was trained in proper swordsmanship, which became the foundation for his study of various sword fighting styles. He is a complete sword nerd who can cut down any enemy with a single wooden sword. Cry thinks that if the Phantom were truly that powerful, Thousand Swords, whose real name is Luke, would have come and defeated it long ago. Still, Cry thinks the Phantom might be too much for Tino to handle and regrets not waiting for Arkansas. Ruda then asks Cry what they should do. After thinking for a moment, Cry tells everyone to leave the area before encountering that Phantom. He also instructs everyone to follow Tino's orders from now on since she is the leader of this mission. Tino, however, doubts herself, believing she's completely useless compared to Cry. But Cry insists, saying it's all part of her training. Tino reluctantly agrees and shows her leg, explaining that the pain has subsided and she can now run properly, meaning they should be able to escape quickly. However, Cry reminds her that they also have rescued people with them who can't move that fast. Tino quickly apologizes for not considering that. Of course, Cry only saying that because he thinks he's the only one who can't keep up. On the way, Rudolph tells Tino that if the Phantom appears again, she can use him as a human shield to ensure at least his party escapes safely. Tino confidently reassures him that everything will be fine because Cry is there, so there's no need to worry. Cry, however, finds Tino's faith in him absolutely unrealistic. If it were just her, he could carry her and escape, but saving everyone in the group is simply impossible. Suddenly, the sound of wolves howling grows closer. Cry checks his relics and realizes he has only 5 safety rings left, meaning if he dies a 6th time, it will be permanent. Cry has no other relics he can use. The shooting ring won't be able to stop them. And the citrus slime is missing, plus he dropped the sword relic he had tied to his waist somewhere. A sense of dread then washes over Cry as he wonders if this could truly be the end of his life. The phantom suddenly appears, and Cry quickly steps in front of Tino, telling her to stay back. He plans to use his flying relic to turn himself into a human missile. Though it will cost him a life, he hopes to land a surprise attack. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts, filling everyone with fear. As the phantom approaches, they notice a woman walking behind it. To Cry and Tino's shock, the woman is none other than Cry's childhood friend, Liz. With a single powerful kick, she sends the phantom flying, slamming it into the wall. Liz approaches Cry and asks if the people with him are new members of their party. When Cry denies it, she looks relieved, commenting that they all seem far too weak to her. She then hands Cry the sword relic he had dropped. As they talk, the others begin murmuring, wondering who Liz really is. Overhearing them, Liz becomes furious and asks if they're truly hunters. She can't believe there are still people in the capital who don't recognize her. The members of the Grieving Souls. Liz tells Cry that when she returned from her mission, she heard he had gone to a treasure vault to help Tino, so she rushed over without hesitation. She still can't believe it and is furious at Tino, her apprentice, for being unable to handle cleaning up a bunch of weak enemies and having to rely on Cry. Liz harshly scolds Tino, making everyone feel sorry for her. When Gilbert tries to step in and explain the situation to Liz, he ends up getting kicked. Poor guy. Cry then steps forward to calm Liz down, explaining that Tino actually did very well on the mission. To divert her mood, Cry compliments Liz on how much better she's gotten at holding back compared to before, which makes her very happy. Smiling, Liz agrees and then tells Cry that Tino does have talent. What she lacks is ambition, effort, and the willingness to risk her life. As she speaks, the phantom suddenly gets back up and calls for reinforcements. Furious, Liz puts on her mask and steps in front of everyone. The Wolf Knight then fires a machine gun at her, but Liz moves so quickly that she effortlessly catches all the bullets, shaping them into a perfect square. Seeing this, everyone is stunned, except for Cry and Tino. With a single kick, Liz able to kills the Wolf Knight. When the phantom attempts to attack her, she stops it with just her finger. She then keeps punching it in the face until it dies, while scolding Tino, saying, "This is how you're supposed to defeat it." Tino can't hold back any longer and starts crying, making Cry feel bad for her. As he watches Liz defeat the phantom with ease, Cry laughs at the idea that the phantom could be on par with Thousand Swords. After all, Thousand Swords and Liz constantly challenged each other, pushing each other to improve over time. And that is how the Grievers became so strong. Liz's full name is Liz Smart. She is faster than anyone or anything in the world. Her godly speed is so incredible that it doesn't even leave a shadow. That's why her second name is Stifled Shadow. The next day, Gilbert hands his sword to Tino and asks her to give it to Cry. He plans to start over with his old party, hoping that one day he can become as strong as Liz. However, Tino, Greg, and Ruta doubt this is possible. Tino warns Gilbert that if he truly wants to match Liz's strength, he'll need the Griever's mask. 6 years ago, Cry had custom-made a mask for each member, but he messed up the order and forgot to include eye holes. Despite the mistake, his team didn't mind, believing it was part of Cry's plan to push them to become even stronger. Meanwhile, in his office, Cry searches for citrus slime but can't find it anywhere and eventually gives up, deciding to just forget about it. Citri, an alchemist and a member of the Grieving Souls, is a quirky yet respected figure in the capital's Institute of Science. A year ago, she gave Cry a slime known as Citri's slime as a gift. When Cry tried to open it, she warned him that releasing it could potentially destroy the entire capital. Now, in his room, Cry searches everywhere for Citri's slime but finds no trace of it. He recalls opening the capsule once in the White Wolf's den, only to discover it was empty. Before that, it had been securely stored in a relic-like safe, and he's certain he never opened it. Reflecting on these events, Cry begins to suspect the capsule might have been empty all along. Later, in the hallway, Cry runs into Eva. She informs him that the association wants a detailed report on the White Wolf's Den. Cry suggests asking Tino since she was the team leader, but Eva explains that Tino is currently training with Liz and isn't available. Cry then asks Eva if there has been any unusual activity in the capital. Although Eva doesn't understand what he means, she plans to investigate anyway. Cry reassures her, saying it's probably nothing and that he's just overthinking. As Cry leaves, Eva thinks to herself that there must be something going on in the capital, because to her knowledge, everything that Cry says always happens. In front of the training hall, Cry is surprised to find a group of hunters gathered outside. A level 6 hunter named Sven then approaches Cry and tells him that they can't use the training hall because Liz is inside right now. He urges Cry to stop Liz immediately, warning that if he doesn't, Tino is going to die. Cry doesn't believe him at first. However, when he opens the door, he's shocked to see Tino lying on the ground while Liz is poised to deliver an axe kick. Feeling sorry for Tino, Cry asks Liz to stop. Liz's attitude completely changes as she listens to him. While they're talking, Tino suddenly grabs Liz's leg and tells her she can still move. This makes Liz grin and continue her training with Tino. Cry then quickly leaves the room, apologizing to the other hunters, admitting that even he can't do anything when Liz is like this. Sven thinks it can't be helped. On the bright side, he believes Tino getting stronger will benefit them too. Sven reports to Cry that the road to the White Wolf's Den has been blocked off because several phantoms have appeared and attacked travelers. Cry feels something is suspicious about the White Wolf's Den and suspects this might be why Gark wanted to meet him. Cry is still annoyed that Ark isn't here, because if it was him, everything will go smoothly. Cry then comes up with an idea and leave everything to Sven. He tells Sven to meet with Gark on his behalf and handle the quest as well. After Cry leaves, one of Sven's team members asks why their leader spends most of his time staying back while everyone else is out on missions. Sven smiles and explains that the newcomer doesn't know Cry well yet but assures him that there's more to Cry than meets the eye. Elsewhere, Gark is still puzzled about the cause of the anomaly in the treasure vault. There have been no changes in the ley lines near the White Wolf's Den or the amount of mana materials present. He wonders if Cry might know something about it and wants to speak with him. After all, Cry took the trouble to go out there and check it out himself. That alone proves there is something going on there. In the treasure vault, a group of bad guys is running an experiment. They start to worry that the Explorers Association might find them soon because of Cry. They can't believe a mere hunter could understand the big plan of their leader, the Grand Master of Mages and head of research at the capital's branch of the Akashic Tower. The leader of the group refuses to abandon the experiment, believing that if it succeeds, they'll be able to create treasure vaults at will. He plans to call back one of his members, Sophia, who is currently on vacation. She is his right hand, highly skilled. He believes she could easily solve the problem if she were here. The next day, Cry has a nightmare where the city is destroyed by a slime. When he wakes up, he's surprised to find Liz sleeping beside him. She asks if he's free that day and suggests they go on a date. Cry asks about her training with Tino, and Liz explains that Tino needs a break, as he might break if she pushes too hard, so they're taking the day off. Wanting to forget his nightmare, Cry agrees to go on a date with Liz. Unfortunately for them, before they can leave, they run into Gark, who wants to speak with Cry. Liz, annoyed, tells Gark to get out of the way, saying Cry is too busy. She also accuses Gark of being overly reliant on Cry. The argument quickly escalates, and the two begin insulting each other, eventually leading to a fight. Meanwhile, Cry and Kane head upstairs to discuss the White Wolf's Den. Kane asks if Cry noticed anything unusual there, but he replies that he didn't and mentions he's more worried about something else. Curious, Kane asks what's bothering him. Cry, feeling flustered, makes an excuse, saying he can't share details yet because he's unsure who might be listening. The truth, however, is that he can't admit he may have accidentally released a dangerous slime in the city. Cry then tells Kane that while he can't leave right now, he'll make sure his clan provides as much support as possible. At the same time, Gark struggles against Liz, who effortlessly dodges all his attacks. Fortunately, before things escalate further, Cry steps in to stop them. Realizing he's no match for Liz, Gark wants to resume his training again. Later, Eva returns, only to be shocked to find the guild in a state. Liz thinks Gark has grown weak with age and doubts he could handle the Night Palace in his current state. Cry wonders if the phantoms there are really that strong. Liz confirms they're the toughest so far, saying it feels like facing a true level 8 threat. When Cry asks how it compares to the boss of the White Wolf's den, Liz is surprised and asks if there was a boss there. She then apologizes, saying she's not good at remembering trash like that. Cry reflects on how strong his team is and hopes Citri and the others return from the Night Palace soon. He's eager to deal with the slime before it causes any trouble. Turning to Liz, he asks what she would do if the entire city of Zabrudia were destroyed. Liz smiles and replies that she'd want to run away with him. Her positive attitude makes Cry smile, and he thinks to himself that he could learn a thing or two from her outlook. As they talk, Liz notices a man staring at them and quickly catches him. Cry, however, tells her to let him go. Liz assumes this is part of Cry's plan and that he allowed the man to watch them. She assures Cry that she'll be more cautious next time. Unbeknownst to them, the man they released is actually one of the villains conducting the experiment. He confused and wonders why Cry let him go and questions if it was meant as a warning. If you come this far, please consider liking and subscribing for more videos like this. Thank